Shaking that off. Welcome back, everyone. Today, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker for the day. It's Merissa Braud, family nurse practitioner. Merissa Braud is an advanced practice provider at Open Healthcare Clinic who provides primary care to women and the HIV population. She has been working with the organization since October 2022 and specializes in HIV management, walk-in care, PrEP, PEP, and STI screening treatment. Merissa is passionate about serving her community and takes pride in providing care alongside her amazing coworkers. She finds it rewarding when her patients feel comfortable and heard during their appointments, and she is dedicated to making a difference in her patients' lives and wants them to know that they are part of a team working together to prioritize their care, their health, and their overall well-being. I introduce Merissa Braud. There you go, timekeeper.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Chad, because I really needed that breathing technique. I'm not really good at speaking, but how are y'all today? Good morning. My name is Merissa Bro. They gave me a big, like a great background, but a little background about myself. I've been working in healthcare since 2007. Don't worry, this will not be some drawn out soliloquy about myself or how amazing I am. I'm here to talk about my experience as an HIV care provider and the impact they have had on me. And I believe that acknowledging and voicing my past will give better insight into the provider I have become and the care when it comes to my patients. I pray that my words will resonate today. As I stated, I've been working in healthcare for 16 years as a medical scribe, a medical tech, a nurse, and now a nurse practitioner in various fields ranging from the emergency department to the intensive care unit and now primary and HIV care. During this time, there have been pivotal moments that have changed my trajectory and how I approach my patients, particularly those living with HIV. I can recall one particular incident. I have been working in the emergency department for about 5 years, which for people who don't know, surviving a year in the ER as a nurse is equivalent to dog years. So just multiply that by 7. So in my head, I had the knowledge and the arrogance of someone who was in the game for 35 years. You couldn't tell me anything. As I was introducing myself to the patient and obtaining her information, I was asking her history, and she told me she had HIV. I glanced at her records and previous labs, and my reply was, "So, you have AIDS?" She replied, "No, I have HIV." At the time, I was in nurse practitioner school and just studied infectious diseases, so I was ready to tell her about herself. So I took a deep breath and began reciting from my current medical and diagnosis 2019 edition. And I said, "No, ma'am. By definition, your CD4 count is less than 200, so you have AIDS." And she looked at me for a second, and I will never forget this interaction. She said very calmly, "I know what I have. I've had it for over half my life. So before you begin to tell me about myself and judge me for what I have, you need to take a look in the mirror and realize you are no different or better than me, Miss Smartass." Sorry, God. That's what she told me. She reported me to my supervisor, rightfully so, and said I had discriminated against her. And I was like, discrimination? Who, me? I was a star nurse. I had countless awards and great rapport with my coworkers, to the point that my own supervisor told me not to worry about the complaint, that she was probably just being sensitive. But it bothered me, not because I cared about her opinion, but because my ego was in the way. How could a black person tell me that I was discriminating against her? So I semi-reflected on what she said, and I interpreted it as, okay, don't tell anybody they have AIDS. Got it. Moving on. Fast forward some years, I had graduated with my dual role nurse practitioner degree. I had traveled as an ER nurse during the pandemic and decided to settle down in the ICU as a nurse practitioner. On paper, it was everything I had wanted. I was being mentally stimulated. I was performing hands-on procedures like intubating patients and inserting arterial lines, chest tubes. I was making great money. It was going great. But there was something missing. I did not feel fulfilled. Then one day, I randomly received a call from a friend who asked me if I wanted to work at her healthcare clinic. She told me how it provided healthcare to underserved community in Baton Rouge. And my initial thoughts were, okay, working in an underserviced area could show people how selfless I am, and I don't have to work weekends anymore. That's a deal. When I went to the interview at Open Healthcare Clinic, someone on the interview committee asked me what brought me here. Mind you, I had never interviewed, ever. I mostly worked in the ER and the ICU, which were both very desperate for staff, so I had no clue what to say. But for some reason, I just blurted out, God. Now, back when I was what you would call a closet Christian, which meant I believed in God, I praised God by myself, but I really didn't talk about him in a public setting that was not church related because it wasn't the cool or professional thing to do. Oh, I will slow it down. Sorry. Got you. I get nervous. I'm sorry. I'll slow it down. So me saying that was weird. But I just kept going, and I said that I believed it was my purpose to be here. And that was the actual truth. No fabrication, no white lies. So I got the job. Great. Now it was my time to set up my schedule. And then my boss asked how I would feel about working with the HIV population. I was initially shocked because naturally I assumed, given my ER background, I would be the urgent care provider. And when I asked why she wanted me in that particular position, her response was, there's just something about you that I think the patients would like. I had no clue what she was talking about at the time, but I was up for the challenge. First day at work, I'm introduced to everyone. Everyone is kind and they're nice. And best of all, I had one of the gurus of HIV care as my preceptor, Joni Nickens. Now, if you don't know who she is, Google her. She's famous. But she let me watch her with a couple of patients and then turned to me and said, all right, girl, now you give it a go. In my head, I was ready. I knew how to do a quick HPI because of my ER experience. I knew I was really good at assessments because of the details I learned in ICU. And I read a little pocketbook on HIV care, so I was like, okay, I got this. I'll walk into the room with a patient, and I nailed it. I had her laughing. She was open. I was laughing. And as I began to leave, I said to her, I thought it would have been a lot harder with my first HIV patient. And her demeanor instantly changed. She stopped laughing. Her eyes narrowed. And she said, I am not an HIV patient. I am a person who has HIV. That's right. I apologized profusely and told her she was completely right. But in my mind, I didn't understand what she was saying. After that, I felt like I was walking on eggshells with the rest of all the patients. I was afraid to say anything wrong for fear I would insult someone. That fear led to frustration. That frustration led to anxiety. So I asked to go home a bit early from my orientation. As the week went by, that interaction bothered me. But this time, it was because I cared about how I made her feel. So I decided to Google discrimination in HIV. Sorry. And it brought me to a website describing symbolic violence and the effects on the Black community. It defines symbolic violence as a thank you, as a non-physical form of violence that is directed towards marginalized groups in society through actions and words that emphasize and exacerbate their marginal status, such as words like addict or AIDS. It also explained how this symbolic violence is internalized over time to patients, resulting in people feeling devalued and dehumanized, and leading to a gradual decrease in their self-worth. This website entirely changed my perspective. My patients weren't being overtly sensitive or waiting for me to say the wrong word or fail. They just wanted to be treated as patients. They just wanted to be treated as patients who received quality care and not constantly looked at like the puppies on the ASPCA commercial. After realizing this, familiarizing myself on HIV no longer felt like a burden. It was something I actually wanted to do to better serve my patients. And eventually, other staff began to notice the change in my demeanor and started scheduling me with newly diagnosed HIV patients. I had to still keep in mind that HIV care may be my newfound passion, but to my patients, people living with HIV, this is their daily life. It is not a cure diagnosis from the past or one they possibly worry about obtaining in the future. This is a constant presence, which can be overwhelming to take in. So what I try to do is answer any questions to the best of my ability. Sometimes, one of the first questions I get from a patient is, how long will I live? And so, I tell them that there are good facts, and then there are the facts. I prefer saying it that way, opposed to good news, bad news. The good facts are, according to HIV Lens, life expectancy among persons with HIV who receive antiretroviral treatment now approaches that of the general population. That factors like adherence to medication, keeping routine appointments for screening of other comorbidities such as heart disease, liver disease, kidney failure, and cancer will help keep that longevity and increase their life expectancy. And then, at some point, when I feel they are ready to hear, I give them the facts. And the facts are that though we have made tremendous leaps and bounds regarding HIV care and management, there is still quite a road ahead, especially for our community. According to the International Journal for Equity in Health, despite biomedical advances that have resulted in greater life expectancy for those living with HIV, large inequalities still exist in terms of the distribution of these benefits expressed in the United States. Black and Latin people living with HIV express the most depression, how their sense of self-worth is diminished over time, how they become increasingly socially isolated as a result of the multiple challenges often not faced by their non-ethnic counterparts. This subsequently results in disengaging from care at some point in their HIV journey due to social stigmas, discrimination, and structural barriers. There have been times my patient have flat out told me, "You could have kept that news to yourself." And my response is challenges will present themselves in your life, but they need not define them. And most importantly, an educated mind can never be oppressed. When I say oppression, I don't only mean unjust treatment. I am placing emphasis on the mental pressure and distress that being misinformed or uneducated can do to a person or a society. Because if anything this journey has taught me thus far, it is that knowledge negates ignorance and it disintegrates stigma. I strive to provide transparency with my patients so I can establish trust and assure them that I am aware of the road ahead and I want to be there beside them for their present journey. Now there's our future. Yes, I said our future, as in together. A pill a day will not keep this provider away. I like to leave a lasting impression to my patients that despite how they may feel sometimes, they are never a burden to care for, and how I want to be by their side. I emphasize how we are in this together and helping them attain long, prosperous life with realistic expectations. Whether our future as a team is for a lifetime or for a season, I appreciate the lessons I can teach, but as well as the ones that I have learned from my patients along the way. Like how to not let a person's diagnosis define their treatment or how I approach them. To realize that people living with HIV aren't just statistics or a chapter in the HIV 101 book. I need to treat the person, not the disease. Through my patients, I have learned to sit and listen, which my husband can attest to is a challenge. Listen to all my patients. They don't fall under an umbrella of treatment. You learned that in the ER. Oh, you have abdominal pain? Good to know. We would have the orders, the medicine, the labs, and the discharge papers ready before you even hit the door. In such a chaotic environment, we are programmed to treat numbers and not people, which is hard to stray away from. I had to step out of that mind frame and realize I am dealing with individuals, not diagnoses. Individuals who have their own bodies, their own experiences that shape their detailed and tailored care. Listening has been the most valuable tool to provide the best care for my patients. But most importantly, my patients living with HIV have taught me the importance of resilience. Despite the hardships I mentioned earlier, and countless others that I didn't, people living with HIV, especially those diagnosed for years, have found ways of becoming some of the most resilient people I know. By resisting stigma, discrimination, ignorance, and being supportive to others while battling their own struggles. For many decades, people living with HIV were defined by their failures and judged by their lifestyles, opposed to their achievements and their successes. But I say to you now, the tides are turning. We are now recognizing that HIV-related stigma has the ability to kill people more than HIV. And it is the providers and healthcare's duty to meet you halfway, and even more than that sometimes, to become just as resilient as you have been for so long. We need to be there for you. That no matter how many books we read, your resilience provided you with experience that supersedes our literature in so many aspects. And it is time that we let go of the pilot's hat and be the informative co-pilot, because this is your journey, not healthcare's. I want to emphasize how honored I am to be speaking in front of you today. If you were to ask Ms. Wahida or Ms. Sharon, they would tell you that I was very hesitant to speak. My initial thoughts were, Why me? I'm just beginning this journey. There are so many other providers who have been caring for patients longer that can provide more objective knowledge than I can. What if I provide information that no one wants to hear? And then those 3 letters that I mentioned in the beginning popped up in my head. The same 3 letters I've been afraid to mention for so long. God. There is no coincidence that this conference is in a church. No coincidence that it was God who brought me to Open Healthcare Clinic to begin working with a population who have accepted me and all my quirkiness as their provider. For the first time in my medical career, I can finally say that I have a purpose in my profession. I can finally wake up and know that I am working solely for God and letting Him work through me. I leave here by sending this message out to anyone living with HIV. Yes, there will be challenges ahead. There will be stigma and ignorant people like 20-something-year-old Merissa. But Isaiah 41:10 reads, "Fear nothing in front of you because of who is standing behind you." Please remember that we are behind you. The Reunion Project stands behind you. The National Working Positive Coalition and countless other organizations stand behind you. The providers here and those you don't see stand behind you. You stand behind you. But most importantly, God loves and stands behind you. Laissez-les bon temps rouler. Thank you.